I'm going to say some words to you, and I want you to just kind of hold these words as you listen to our next speaker. Transgender, immigrant, gender nonconforming, brown skin, vulnerability, power. Please welcome to the stage Lizette.
Hello, everyone. Oh, well, I guess I'm going to hold it now. My name is Lizette. I never drink. I had 2 glasses of wine. So I'm ready. Before my official 10-minute start, I have to preface a few things. To the trans people in the room, you are amazing, and your bravery has made my journey in being able to tell this story possible because you have created a pathway for me to follow. So I thank you first. Secondly, I only speak about my child in male pronouns. I do not go back and forth. And so if that is confusing for you, I apologize, but it's out of respect for him and who he is and how I know him to be. And so those are my 2s. My third is that my story is binary. My child saw himself as male from the age of 2, and it is not everyone's journey. And so my story is not representative of the whole, it's representative of a few. And so I ask that you respect that, and in no way am I trying to diminish other people's experiences. Yes. Okay. So, and also too, because we're speaking of the feminine, like I literally started menstruating today. So I figured it was like a celebration of all things. And now you know me, right? Yes, okay, it's happening. There's hands in the back. To my other Aries in the back, she's let me know that that's happening in her world too. Okay, so when I was 26 years old, I looked at my not yet spouse, he's right there, and I literally told him I want to have a baby. Like everything in my body was like, get pregnant now. And he looked back at me and he said, I can do that for you. And we did immediately. And I got pregnant right away. Like, my mom will attest to this because I told her, just so you know, we're trying. And then like 3 weeks later, I was like, it happened. Like, awesome. And so, you know, I'm pregnant. And I would have hated Michelle when we were pregnant, if we would have been pregnant together, because your pregnancy sounded beautiful. And mine was not pretty, like nauseous every single day, like threw up every day. And I was shoving things in my mouth so that I could not be nauseous, and I would vomit it back up. And I fractured a rib and I busted all the blood vessels in my right eye. And by the time I was 37 weeks, they were like, we got to induce you, you have preeclampsia. It was awful. And so there were people around me, they looked easy breezy, and I was like, I hate all of you. And I thought that I was really evil. I was like, I'm a hateful, evil person. But it was really like blood pressure spikes, because I was having high blood pressure spikes and I had preeclampsia. So I was like, I'm really not evil. I was just, you know, sick. And so they pull my baby out and they're like, it's a girl. And I was like, this is amazing. It's a girl. You're going to have a gender neutral name. We're going to get mani-pedis. We're going to bond, mommy and me. It's going to be cool. And I'm not going to fail at this. I'm going to get it right because I'm a perfectionist and I'm controlling. And it was going to happen. It was going to be good. And so when my child was 2, he began to take off all the girly things and like literally dump dirt on himself and eat it. And I was like, okay, it's fine. You know, antibodies, you won't get sick. And when he was 3, he decided he wanted to be Aladdin and Astro Boy, and he would fly off of things, and sometimes we'd catch him, sometimes we didn't. He has scars to prove that. When he was 4, he would put on my husband's clothing and stare at himself in the mirror and puff out his chest and say in his deepest voice, I am a prince in shiny armor. And my husband and I were like, that's interesting. Okay, you can be a prince in shiny armor. And when he was 5, that's when really all the gender conversations began to happen, because he would come home from school crying. And he would say, I can't be Lightning McQueen because the kids say that I can't be Lightning McQueen, or I can't be the boy Transformer because they keep telling me I'm a girl, The one that really upset him was he got in trouble for going into the boys' bathroom. And that was because they were like, well, you're not supposed to be in there. And he was like, I'm no different than them, and I should be in the boys' bathroom. And all these things, my husband and I were like, that's interesting, but we didn't really question it. We talked about it, but we didn't really question it. And when our child was 6 and 7, he was like, Mom, I want to wear sporty clothes. And I was like, Sporty Spice, we got this. I'm going to dress you so cute. And he wanted a suit. And I was like, Annie Hall, we're going to lady the shit out of this. Like, it's going to be amazing. Girls are cool. We're going to wear suits. It's awesome. And everything I did with my kid was out of this girl lens. And when he would tell me things, I would get really upset. And I was like, there's nothing wrong with being a girl. Let's talk about it. Danica Patrick, amazing race car driver. Beyonce just released Who Runs the World Girls anthem, right? And like, so everything, and he would look back at me like, you do not get it. And I didn't. I did not understand what was happening. And so when my child was 8, we were at school, and one of his friends was talking to us. And his friend referred to my child as him. And his friend, but my son's friend's mother said, no, sweetie, she's a girl. And this child looked back at us and said, no, he's a he. And my son looked at me, and I looked at everyone because I was all of a sudden on the spot, and I shrugged because I was like, I don't know what to say. And so I walked my kid back to the car, and I buckled him in, and I sat in the front, and I started driving, and I told him, I heard that your friend referred to you as him. Is this how you see yourself? And my child looked at me, and I wasn't going to cry. I've practiced this a lot, but now I'm feeling emotional with those 2 glasses of wine. And my son looked at me and said, I know that my body is wrong, but in my heart and in my insides, I'm a boy. And I don't remember anything else. It was like a real big blur. But I remember that I asked a lot of questions just to double check, right? And I told him that I loved him and that there were other people like him, and mommy and daddy were going to make sure he was safe. That's was the gist. And when I had a moment, I called my husband and I said, you know that thing we've been talking about? It's real. Our kid's presenting as a boy at school, and we need to support him. And like all the things that my husband does, he was like, we got this. And immediately I was terrified. Even though he said, we got this, I was terrified. Not because my child was trans, but because I knew the world was not safe for trans people. And so, needless to say, we navigated this alone for about 8 to 9 months. I was afraid to even tell our pediatrician. We cut his hair. We let him roam the world in this very like gender neutral way. We didn't tell people. And I did some Google research, and it was fucking awful. Like I was like, I'm never Googling transgender shit ever again. The one thing I got out of that is that I needed a safe folder. And for those of you who do not know what a safe folder is, it's this thing that you compile all this proof and evidence that your child is really trans. So it's like letters from doctors, from therapists, the ways that they see themselves, how they draw themselves. And I didn't have any of that other than, and my son made me one. He would leave these all over our house, and I did not get it. He would leave me little Lego men all over the house. And to this day, he tells me, I thought you would figure it out. And I didn't figure it out. And so there you have it. Oblivious. Remember when I said I was going to get it right? I didn't. And so we went and navigated this all by ourselves. And one day I saw on Facebook a supportive trans youth post, and I was like, oh, good, I can write something here. And I wrote something along the lines of, this is what's happening in my home. And the mom who wrote back to me is in this room, and I'm not going to look at her because I'm indebted to her for life. But she reached out, and I don't really remember anything that was said other than, there are more of us. And I said, where? And so I went to my first meeting, and I met these incredible parents that were from like different diverse backgrounds, and they were doing it. Like they were like, your kid can go to school privately. Here's the letter, give it to the principal. Here's doctors. Here's all this stuff we've worked out. And I all of a sudden didn't feel alone, and it didn't feel like this daunting experience that I couldn't figure out. And what I need to also talk about community, because so many of you have talked about community tonight, is that community is healing. It is a space where we as parents, there's a lot of misconceptions. You guys think we get together and cry? And we do cry, but it's not about the things you guys think. Like sometimes we're crying because might have learned that our kid's not drinking water or eating food at school because they're afraid to go to the bathroom. And there's nothing more painful than thinking that your child's not nourishing their body throughout the day. Or maybe the dysphoria is really bad and you just wish you had the tools to make it feel better, right? So we're not sitting there feeling sorry for ourselves. We're trying to figure out how to make the world safer for our kids. We love them. I would die for my baby. And so 4 years later, I am now the parent moderator of this group, and we're growing every month. It's crazy to see how much we've grown, and we see these kids. I love these kids. To know them is to love them. That's not a cliche, right? And to meet these parents, we're creative as fuck. We're like, the school's not going to work with you. Let's figure out some letters. They're not going to let the kids use the bathroom. Let's have the doctor write some stuff. Let's learn about FERPA. We are learning about things that we shouldn't need to learn about. And that's really frustrating to me because as a Mexican-American woman who is born to parents whose my grandparents brought my parents here at ages 3 and 5. And my dad used to have these long conversations of, I worked my ass off so that your generation is better. And you're going to work your ass off so that your generation is better. And I did all the things. I was the first one to go to college. My parents gave me a great life. I did all the things to ensure that my child would thrive. And then I take this journey and I realize that based on policy alone, my kid is 5-10 steps behind me. And it's frustrating. And so it thrusts me into advocacy, right? Uncomfortably so. I live in discomfort all the time. And what I want to finish off with my story, I don't know, am I running over? I'm good? Solid? Okay. What I want to do is share a story that my child told me when he was 8. So when my child was 8 years old and we knew that he was trans, we were talking about different things and experiences and people being different. And there was a child in his class that had CP severely. And he was asking me about that. And I taught him the word empathy. And I taught him the difference between empathy and sympathy. And he looked back at me and he said, Mom, I think God made me this way on purpose. And it's so that I could be empathy and so that I could teach empathy. And so if my child at 8 could understand that the difference in him allows space to embrace the differences in others, I think we all can do the same. And I also want to leave you guys with this second note, is that allyship is action. It's action. Don't let us parents do this alone. It takes a village. It literally takes a fucking village to create change. And so I ask all of you to make movement, that when you introduce yourself to people, use pronouns. I did not use my pronoun. It was the wine. I'm she, her. Because it creates safety for trans people in public spaces. If you normalize these things, we're creating a better and safer world, right? And also, if someone tells you their pronouns and they're expressing physically differently than what their pronoun looks like, believe them. And don't ask them how they knew. Because it's painful to have to explain over and over again your truth of who you are, right? And so that's the end of my story, because there really isn't an end. He's 12, we're on this journey, we still have a lot of resistance to do, and I just really appreciate your time, and I hope I made you laugh a little, because it really is it's been the greatest gift of my life. So thank you very much.